Hey guys, welcome to the stream. So, getting back into the Tamiya Zero build. It's been a little bit since I've streamed any of this. Been kind of busy. Got a little work done since last I streamed it. In my last stream, I was doing a lot of decaling, and I got most of that on camera. One of the ones that I tried to do off camera, because I knew I'd probably screw it up, were these yellow markings on the front. And sure enough, I screwed them up. I couldn't get them to lay down well. They started tearing, and I just threw them away. So what I did instead was I masked them off, put a coat of white paint down, and then a coat of yellow. So we have these nice yellow markings now. They did a pretty good job. There are a few places that I didn't quite get what I wanted, but I'll probably do some touch-ups here and there, and with the weathering and the like that I'm going to do, it'll blend in pretty well. So after I did that, I got 2 gloss coats on it, so you can see it's quite shiny now, which is not what we want ultimately, but it does 2 things for us. It protects the decals, for one thing, but 2, it makes it very difficult to see the clear backing that the decal are on. So each of these decals, if you remember, has a clear backing around it, and it's very difficult to see now. You probably can't see it in the camera. I can barely see it if I'm looking for it explicitly here in person, but otherwise it's quite in good shape. So that's the main thing for it, is to protect the decals and to hide the clear film. But it also allows us to do what we're going to do today, and that's to put an oil dot filter on the model. And the purpose of this technique, this tool, whatever, is to take something that is right now very uniform. I mean, the color is all the same, and it makes it kind of visually boring. So you take the color, you put the oil dot filter over it, and it kind of changes the color a little bit in non-uniform ways. So by adding some nearly translucent coloring over it, you get some subtle gradations in color. And the way you do that, well, one way you could have done it is with some airbrushing. Could have used different colors or some shading techniques and the like to break it up a little bit. But what we're going to do is use some oil paints. Now these are the same kind of oil paints that you'd use to make a painting. I can't get one out right now because I would bump the camera, but I squeezed a little bit out on this piece of cardboard last night, and the reason I did that is to get some of the fluid that carries the pigment to soak into the cardboard, because I don't need that on the model. I only need the pigment. And so you can see around each of the dots that I spread out last night, you know, these stains of the carrying fluid that have kind of seeped out into the cardboard. And so what I'll do is I'll take these colors and I'll apply them to the model, and then use white spirit thinner to, this is mineral spirits. Odorless is preferred because it can get quite stinky. To start drawing out the color and thinning it down a whole lot so that it is just noticeable that it's making a difference. And so you usually use, well, you can do this a lot of different ways. The original way when this was developed was to use the three primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. People have modified it through the years. I like using some blacks and whites. I have some browns and things like that. Kind of depends on the paint color of the subject I'm working on. If I had greens, which I don't have any, I might have used some subtle differences in greens. But since green is a combination of blue and yellow, well, we can see how that works. So I don't know if I'll make it through the whole model on stream. Kind of depends on how quickly this goes. I've only done this a few times, and when I've done it, it's been on ship models, so a bit of a different subject. But we'll give it a try. We'll start, I think, with the underside, because as you can see, I used these toothpicks, or these stir sticks, to basically fake my landing gear. So I didn't want to put the landing gear in there yet, but when I was painting the gloss coat, I needed to paint the underside, and then I needed to paint the dorsal surface. I needed a way to set it down without just ruining all the work I did on the underside. So we used just little stir stick pieces stuck in various ways to get that taken care of. So we will start, I think, with the underside, and then time allowing, we'll go to the top side as well. So application is pretty simple, just with toothpicks, and it's called a dot filter for a reason. We'll pick up paint and we will literally dot it around the model. I have my mineral spirits here in a little tuna cup, and I'll use that on my brushes. I have some brushes that I use only for this purpose, and then some paper towels, because you want to routinely kind of clean your brush. One thing I forgot to do is cut a piece of cardboard to put under the model. So this needs to be done real quick. All right, that made it very loud. You ready? There's always one thing that you forget, like going to Home Depot or something. Thankfully, I had a nice big package I could use to cut out a piece of cardboard. Doing this because this is somewhat of a messy process. The cardboard will absorb the extra mineral spirits or anything that drips off the edges to allow me to keep my workspace a little cleaner. There's always some cleanup afterwards. But hopefully this way it's not as much. So move the camera just a bit. Don't get seasick here. There, it's a little better. So I'm going to start on the left wing, on the right side, because it's upside down. And I think I'm just going to do one wing and then show you the comparison. And I'll probably do the other wing and then the tail, and then flip it and kind of do the same thing. So, like I said, the way this works is exactly as it sounded. It is a dot filter, so we just dot color kind of randomly around the surface. I'm going to more or less avoid the decals. I do have that clear coat on there, but if I mess this dot filter up on the paint, it's not difficult to fix. But if I fix it and go through the gloss coat and screw up the decal, well, then I'm in trouble. So I'm going to weather the decals separately, probably using a little bit of Tamiya clear smoke to make them a little darker, because right now they feel a little too fresh. Now, as I've said some of my previous streams, some people will weather their Japanese aircraft, especially late war aircraft, to an extreme that I don't care to do. So while, yeah, it would be perfectly reasonable to show this aircraft quite beat up, at some point it was new. And so I'm going to paint it with some minor weathering. So there you have it. It looks like I just ruined my model. Trust me, it looks worse with the next step. So, got the oil on there. I wet my brush with the mineral spirits, and you just start brushing. And now, the first time I did this, I got to this point and thought, oh shit, what have I done? But what happens as we, oh, I just went over the decal and just have to deal with that, I guess, is as you draw more and more paint through, it starts to thin out. And so you just clean your brush, and then come back with some more strokes. Things will start blending. And becoming more and more subtle. So you can see it's starting to become more subtle, especially there on the wing tip. It's not so much there yet on the main root. We're getting there. And you keep kind of brushing at it until you've got it at the subtlety level that you want. Which we're not there yet. It's still much too vibrant. I think I will use a little less yellow. Next time. I've always liked this technique because it gives what's otherwise a very monochrome paint scheme some depth. So we're starting to get there, you see. It's very subtle in the colors. Tie-dye planes, yeah. I'm sure someone has painted one tie-dye at some point. And so we just keep doing this until we've got it to the subtlety level that we like. And the nice thing about oils, especially, is that they take forever to dry. So if you don't like what you've done, it's pretty easy to come back and clean it up. Way too much spirits there. And start over. So for instance, I think I'm going to add a few more dots of blue. Especially here near the wing root, where I had way too much yellow. Not gonna do a whole lot. And I think I'm gonna do some white along the flap here because they were actually cloth. So they should be lighter than everything else. Yeah, that's much better. So I added a little bit of blue. I'm liking the way that's looking. Oh, my camera seems to have frozen. Is it just my Streamlabs or is it actually the stream? Nope. It's all of it. Okay, I guess I will have to drop my stream for a minute and bring it back up. So please bear with me. Technical difficulties. Okay, I think we're back. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. I'm not sure what happened there. with my camera freezing. May just be that my old laptop here is struggling a bit. But we're back. Hopefully it'll work. If not, then I may just have to decide not to stream. But anyway, so we've basically finished the underside of that one wing, so you can see the difference maybe now. Very uniform on one side, and a little more subtle coloring on the other. It's a little more visible, I'd say, in person, but hopefully you can kind of see the effect there on the stream. So I'm just going to keep on going. I hit the other wing now. One thing I also noticed when I flipped it over, a lot of the splash had kind of come around the edges of the wings. So I'll have to make sure that I clean that up each time. So, same process. Start by getting oil paint all over your fingers. Learn my lesson a little bit and not use quite so much yellow. Didn't really like the way it kind of tinted everything. But again, that's the good thing about this method. It's easy to recover. Worst comes to worst, you even just kind of wipe it off with paper towel, which is why we have the importance of the gloss coat to make sure that we're protecting the paint under it. So what I did while I was waiting for the stream to reload is I actually just went back with a little bit of white on the ailerons there because it just said they're cloth, so they should be lighter. And so we just continue with the same methodologies. First, by making, as Min called it, a tie-dyed plane. And being concerned that we've just ruined it. But you and I know better already. A lot of the subtleties of this technique is really just how often clean your brush, when it's better to add more spirits or not. So it's very easy to just get this mishmash of colors. That then kind of defeats the purpose of having different colors. This method kind of takes it to the next level. It takes something that looks almost, I don't know, toy-like, to something that has some depth of color to it. I just always thought it made it look a little bit more real. So the red definitely shows up on this light underbody. So I'm looking to tone it down a little bit. Sometimes I come back with almost dry brush, just try to pick up some of the used mineral spirits. Okay, so I'm going to come back and I'm going to add, like I did on the other side, a little bit more blue. I liked what that did on that side. And then on the elevator, I'm going to add more white. So again, they were cloth, so they should be a different color. Different shade is probably better. Phrase. You can even just dip your brush a little bit into the paint if you just want to add a dab of it somewhere. I can also see some merits to doing one color at a time, but whatever you put on first, it's probably just going to get washed away with subsequent coats. So your mileage may vary on that. So hopefully by now you kind of see there's not a whole lot to this other than getting over the initial fear of putting the oil down on the plane. And trust me, I understand that. It ends up with something that, once it dries, is much more visually interesting. So now, like I mentioned, I have this overflow on this side that I kind of clean up just a little bit. I mean, obviously we're going to come back later with some color for this side of its own, but just don't want the color to sit there. So you might wonder why I just didn't dot the whole plane and be done with it. It can kind of sort of stain, so it's better not to do the whole thing. So there's a little bit more red in there than I might have liked. If I want to, I can come back later. But overall, I'm quite pleased with the way this is starting to look. Much more gradation in color. So now I'm going to do the fuselage underside and the tail surface undersides, and then we'll add our fake landing gear and flip it back over. Good. I'm going to use even less yellow this time, so I'm going to keep fighting it. It's kind of dirty look. I don't really like. So we'll just use a little yellow, and this is all going to get drawn back towards the tail anyway. So it should be all right. So it'll overlap some with what we've already done. But that's okay, it'll just blend it a little bit. You want a pretty soft brush when you're doing this. And then like before, I just draw the color down. Get our tie-dye plane going. Hope everybody's having a nice weekend. Been a pretty quiet one for me. I'm off for Thanksgiving now, which is nice. Get some rest, refresh. That's one thing I'm realizing I should have done here. Actually put the tailhook cover on. But I'm going to take it as an opportunity to add some more differentiation in the coloring. And so we're going to say it's okay. All right, like before, I think I'm going to come back with a little bit of blue. I don't really think I need any extra white here. So we'll leave it just to be a little extra blue. So you do this before you really do much weathering. So I haven't done any. I haven't done any pen washes to bring out the panel lines. I haven't done any fading or chipping or anything like that yet. You do these oil washes first, and then come back and do any sort of weathering like that you want to do. Good. So now it's most of the underside. So you can see now we've got a little bit more of a gradation in color, and then ultimately I'll come back, like I said, I'll wipe it off a little bit with a wet cloth once it's set a little bit to remove some of the mineral spirits, and then I'll come back with a coat of Tamiya smoke to darken it up a little bit, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So I'm gonna dot both tail surfaces. They're small, so I'm not too worried about it staining or setting. So we'll get these on there. And then I'll probably, like I did with the main wing, come back and add some more white. So you may not be able to, I may not have explained it, but off camera here I've got just a paper towel on a piece of cardboard that I'm using to clean off my brush between swipes. So it's just dumping any extra paint that I've pulled off, pulling some of the mineral spirits out of the brush because we don't want it sopping wet. Too much yellow on that side, it just kind of blended it all together. So you can see kind of too much yellow on that one side. Like I said, nice thing about this is I can take off as much as I want very quickly just by throwing more mineral spirits at it. I highly recommend you find odorless mineral spirits because you're sitting here for a while just smelling it. So, got some pretty strong red streaks here on my right, aircraft's left. Once I flip it over, I'm trying to bring those down a little bit. In doing so, I've stripped pretty much everything else off, and in trying to clean up all the yellow on the other side, I did so as well. So I'm going to come back again with a little blue. And just try to mix that in a little bit better. So it's not quite so vibrant. So you don't want it to be extremely vibrant. Now it's already more vibrant than I would want to leave it, but again, I'm going to come back with the Tamiya smoke, and it should help me blend things a little bit better at the end. That won't be today. I'll have to wait for this to dry pretty well. And then we have the inner side. Haven't done anything with the engine cowling yet. I'll probably do that later. Today. Just cleaning up the excess that dripped on the other side. My guess is I used too much mineral spirit. It kind of dribbles over to the other side. So now, speaking of the other side, let's do the other side. I think I'll start. I just did the thing I said I wouldn't do. Need to, probably less important for this because it's not something that needs to be perfect. But I also don't want it sitting in mineral spirits or anything. So we will give it its fake tail again. Or fake landing gear, I guess I should say. I think I'm going to start with the fuselage so that I can then handle it by the wings for a little bit longer. So I think I'm going to start on this side. I don't think I want to use quite as much as I did previously. All right. That just kind of became a mishmash color. Not really happy with the way that came out. So I'm going to get a clean paper towel, excuse me, smell. So I think we went a little too much on the fuselage. So I'm going to come back with just a paper towel, wipe some of the color and uh, mineral spirits off. And I think I'm just going to come back with blue. It's a little harder on this much darker surface to tell if anything's going on. I think that led me to try to do a little more than I probably should have. So like I mentioned in the beginning, this is my first time trying this on aircraft. I've done it on ship models, but not on aircraft. So I'm still kind of trying to decide how much of this to do in any particular area. I think what we'll do is I can still see a little bit of the blue and a little bit of the red. I think I'm going to let that sit for a minute and actually do the wing, which is a larger, perhaps easier to see surface. I have to be careful now not to handle the aircraft with my right hand because I keep getting paint on my fingers and that would very easily transfer. Again, kind of trying to avoid the decals as much as I can, mainly the meatballs. I'm going to avoid yellow on the vertical surface. That was a big blob of white. The light just kind of overwhelms. Clean up the edge there. So I think I'll have to let it dry for a bit to see if I like it. I'm going to go ahead and add some white to the control surface here. Try to lighten it up a little bit. A little easier to see what I'm doing, I see without the overhead glare. I do think I like what I'm seeing. So we will let that wing sit. And go to the other side. So on this side of the fuselage, I will use much less. It's just not big enough surface to really warrant a lot of color. We learned on the other side. just enough to give us that prismatic effect. As is often true in modeling, less is often more, and more is often too much. Just cleaning off the decal a little bit here. Alright, and now left wing. Less white this time though. I'm gonna get this where you guys can see it and I can work on it at the same time. Well, I guess I just need an overhead rig for this. I think we're getting there. All right. So I'm kind of going back and looking for any spaces that have a bit too much of a color, and just kind of drawing my brush across them. That's pretty much dot filtering. Probably what I'll do at this point is drop the stream, because at this point it's more of the same. But I'll work on a few small pieces that are not attached and get those cleaned up. And that should do it for the dot filtering. So I'll let this dry for a while. I'll come back with a cloth and wipe down the excess mineral spirits. And hopefully that'll call it a day on that. So like I said, I want to probably drop the stream here. There are only a few minor pieces left that I'll touch on with the same techniques. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, this will be posted on YouTube later, so you can catch me at I'm Johnny5 on YouTube, as well as Twitter, and obviously Twitch. So hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you next time.